This culminating moment of our worship series invites us to a commission from Christ to his disciples to heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, and cast out demons. These are the very things his disciples have seen him do and that we have sought to witness for our own lives in this Lenten season of recovery. What will we do with this commission? How will we address ongoing pain with hope and conviction, even though we ourselves are healed and yet still healing? I'm Pastor Lyda.
I'm Kimberly Emerson.
And I'm Marta Lear, and we welcome you to Westchester United Methodist Church, a place where everyone is welcome and all are affirmed as beloved children of God.
This is a place where love works. Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open body and soul, healer come.
Then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits, to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness.
These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without payment. Give without payment.
Jesus had been teaching, healing, touching, and transforming lives for 3 years. His presence in the midst of suffering had offered hope to so many. And yet, his ways had also challenged the power of privilege. As we have seen in our Lenten journey, his actions had crossed the boundaries of stigma in so many ways.
When healing was needed, no one was left outside of compassion. And this threatened to upset the hierarchy of things. Touching the untouchables, mixing with folk outside or below his status, raising up the faith of outsiders and nobodies had gotten attention.
The last shall be first was not sitting well with the first of society, government, and religion. His popularity was evident the day he and his disciples set foot in Jerusalem for the Passover festival.
Those in seats of power who wanted to keep the peace, even an unjust, unholy, unfair, and unseeing peace, were all talking about the problem. Crowds where Jesus were teaching in Jerusalem were infiltrated by leaders seeking to catch him in controversy.
Time and again, Jesus answered with truth and faith, leaving the naysayers speechless.
When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? He said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
We are pilgrims on a journey. We're together on this road. We are here to help each other walk the mile and bear the load. I will hold the Christ light for you in the nighttime of your fear. I will hold my hand out to you, speak the peace you long to hear. I will weep when you are weeping, when you laugh, I'll
finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days of the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and they conspired to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, "Not during the festival, or there may be a riot among the people."
People open their lives to Jesus. We are drawn to the healer, opening our hearts with honesty about our lives and finding assurance that offers peace.
Matthew's gospel is particularly concerned with indicting the leaders of Jesus' own people for their role in his crucifixion. In this Lenten journey of recovery, we have confessed our own roles, the church's complicity at times in the brokenness of the world.
We have acknowledged our need to restore, repair, and renew our holy vessels so that we might be able to create and imagine new possibilities, new solutions for the healing that is required to make the world more just and more whole.
Let us pray. God of suffering, you take no delight in the destruction of your creation, your people. Our own broken edges, sharp and raw, contribute to the pain sometimes. Especially during prolonged difficulty, we find ourselves struggling. We cannot manage it on our own, yet we try, forgetting to turn to you, forgetting to turn to each other, forgetting the power you offer, the commission you give, to turn our tears to balm, to use our broken edges to cleave new realities of justice and hope. It all feels overwhelming, and so we look away.
Help us, healer. Show us our connection to your healing power. Forgive our disbelief.
Move us to move one step at a time toward greater care for one another.
In this silence, we sense and acknowledge our yearning for wholeness. Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" Then they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he began to look for an opportunity to betray him.
On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?"
He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'"
So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal.
While Matthew's gospel omits the details of the arrival of the disciples for the meal, we know from the other gospel accounts that the customary washing of feet upon arrival took on a particular significance that night.
The washing of feet in the ancient world indicated status, with servants washing the feet of their masters, pupils washing the feet of their teachers.
Jesus was all these things of reverence and honor to those gathered that night. And yet we know he washed their feet, rejecting the norms and indicating a new order of things, a new way to honor one another regardless of status.
That evening, he took his place at the table with the 12 disciples. As they were eating, he said,
"I assure you that one of you will betray me."
Deeply saddened, each one said to him, "I'm not the one, am I, Lord?"
He replied, "The one who will betray me is the one who dips his hand with me into this bowl. The human one goes to his death just as it is written about him. But how terrible it is for that person who betrays the human one. It would have been better for him if he had never been born."
Now Judas, who would betray him, replied, "It's not me, is it, Rabbi?"
Jesus answered, "You said it."
While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat. This is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the new covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never again drink of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's house." Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written,
I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.
but after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee."
Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you."
Jesus said to him, "Truly, I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times.
Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you."
And so said all the disciples.
I invite you to repeat after me. I will never desert you.
I will never desert you.
I will never deny you.
I will never deny you.
I will never desert you.
I will never desert you.
I will never deny you.
I will never deny you.
I will never desert you.
I will never desert you.
I will never deny you.
I will never deny you.
Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and he began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So, could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." When Jesus wept the falling tear, in mercy flowed beyond all bounds. When Jesus groaned, a trembling fear went away for a second time and prayed, "Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and he found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Come, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand."
While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him a large crowd with swords and clubs with the chief priests and the elders of the people.
Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him.
Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do."
Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear.
Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen this way?" At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled."
Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus, so that they might put him to death, but they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days.'"
The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?"
But Jesus was silent.
Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God."
Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven."
Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?"
They answered, "He deserves death." Then they spat in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, Messiah. Who is it that struck you?" Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the Galilean."
But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you're talking about."
When he went out to the porch, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth."
Again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man."
After a while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you."
Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment, the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, "You will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, here come.
When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor.
When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood."
But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself."
Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went out and hanged himself.
But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." After conferring together, they used them to buy the potter's field as a place to bury foreigners. For this reason, that field has been called the field of blood to this day.
Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one on whom a price had been set, on whom some of the people of Israel had set a price, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me.
We bring our broken selves, confused and closed and tired. Then through your gift of healing grace, new purposes inspired. We bring our broken selves, confused and closed and tired. Then through your gift of healing grace, confused and closed and tired. Then bring our gift of healing grace, confused and closed and tired. Then through your gift of healing grace, new purposes and tired. Then through your gift of healing grace, new purposes inspired.
Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?"
Jesus said, "You say so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer.
Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many accusations they make against you?"
But he gave them no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed.
Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them,
"Whom do you want me to release for you? Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him,
"Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him."
Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed.
The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?"
And they said, "Barabbas."
Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus who is called the Messiah?"
All of them said, "Let him be crucified."
Then he asked, "Why? What evil has he done?"
But they shouted all the more,
Let him be crucified.
So when Pilate saw he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he He took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves."
Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children."
So he released Barabbas for them. And after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him.
As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene called Simon. They compelled this man to carry the cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put this charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews."
Then 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others, cannot save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he wants to. For he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in this way.
From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Ele, Ele, lama sabachthani?" That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "This man is calling for Elijah." At once, one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last.
And at that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After his resurrection, they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many.
Now when the centurion and those with him who were keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said, "Truly, this was God's Son."
Many women were also there, looking on from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee and had provided for him. Among them were Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee.
When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus, and Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and then laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. He then rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away.
Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb.
All during Lent, we have remembered the healing acts of Jesus, the radical nature of the boundaries he crossed in order to restore wholeness, the desire of God that transcends all things we do to stand in the way, including the death of kindness, love, and compassion. In this Holy Week moment, Are there things that need to die within us to make room for the resurrection of our lives? Are there things that we can lovingly lay to rest that are no longer needed? Indeed, that may stand in the way of our recovery of wholeness? What is embalmed in death is made new in resurrected life. This is what we believe. This is what we know because it is what Jesus promised. I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, though they die, will live. Vessels holy and whole, broken, needing the one, open, body and soul, healer come.
The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said while he was still alive.
After 3 days, I will rise again."
Therefore, command the tomb to be made secure until the third day. Otherwise, his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people he has been raised from the dead, and the last deception would be worse than the first.
Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can."
So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone.
Now go in silence, but not despair.
May the words of Jesus ring in your ears. I am with you always.
And may the Spirit hover, move, and deliver salve to your soul.
Until we meet again on the day of resurrection. Amen.